3 days after my husband called 911 and convinced everyone my 72-year-old mother had attacked him, detectives found something he never expected anyone to notice. A tiny piece of her broken glasses buried inside the tread of his own shoe. That single piece of evidence would uncover hidden loans, stolen customer money, a secret company, and the lie that destroyed everything he had spent years building. My name is Tamsin Holloway, and when my phone rang at 2:18 that Friday morning, I still believed I was driving home to my husband. I had no idea I was driving toward the end of my marriage. Chapter 1. The Call That Ended My Marriage. At 2:18 on the morning of Friday, July 18, 2025, my mother called and told me my husband had beaten her with a baseball bat. I had just finished a long overnight shift at the logistics center outside Fort Cavazos. I was still in uniform, walking across the employee lot with a travel mug full of cold coffee in one hand and my keys in the other. The Texas air was already warm enough to cling to my skin. My phone rang as I opened the driver's door of my Ford Explorer. Mom's name lit the screen. Marjorie Vale was 72 years old and had never believed nighttime was an excuse to disturb another person. Even when my father died in 2018, she had called only after the paramedics left, the doctor signed the papers, and she had folded his robe over the chair beside their bed. I answered immediately. "Mom." For several seconds I heard only broken breathing and voices somewhere behind her. "Tamsin," she finally said. Her voice was small in a way I had never heard before. "Where are you?" "The police station." I set my coffee on the roof of the Explorer. "Why are you at the police station?" She tried to answer, but the words caught behind a sob. "Take your time," I said. "Tell me what happened." "Grant came over." My hand tightened around the keys. Grant Holloway had been my husband for almost 13 years. He owned Holloway Ridge Renovations, had raised my daughter since she was barely old enough to remember a life before him, and had legally adopted Piper in 2014. What did he want? He was angry. About what? Me? You? The company? I do not know anymore. Then her breathing changed. "He hit me, Tamsin." "With what?" "A baseball bat." The parking lot stayed exactly the same. A diesel engine started near the gate. 2 soldiers crossed behind me, laughing about breakfast. Somewhere in the distance, a cart rattled over concrete. Ordinary sounds can become cruel when your life has just split open. "Where did he hit you?" "My shoulder, my side. I fell near the kitchen table." "Have you seen a doctor?" "They looked at me at the house." "Who is they?" "The paramedics. I told them I was all right." "You were at the police station instead of the hospital. Grant called 911 first." I climbed into the Explorer and shut the door. "What did he tell them?" "That I attacked him, that I had some kind of iron bar. He said I was confused and out of control." Mom lowered her voice. "They think he might be telling the truth." "Listen to me. Do not sign anything else. Do not argue with anyone. Ask them to check you again and stay where people can see you." "I am sorry," she whispered. "For what?" "For causing trouble between you and your husband." That hurt almost as much as the rest of it. "You did not cause this. Grant did." I ended the call, started the engine, and called my younger sister. Nora answered on the second ring. She was 44 and working a night shift at Baylor Scott & White Medical Center in Temple. "What happened?" "I need you to go to my house and get Piper." Her voice sharpened. "Is Grant there?" "I do not know where he is. Mom says he attacked her. Do not let him near Piper." Nora did not waste time asking questions. "I am leaving now." Piper was 16. Grant had met her when she was 18 months old. He had packed her lunches, taught her to ride a bike, built her a desk when she started middle school, and sat through every basketball tournament he could attend. He was not just the man I had married. He was the father Piper remembered. Nora called back before I reached the highway. "Piper is awake. She is scared, but she is with me." Grant called the house, but she did not answer. "Keep it that way." Tamsin Nora said, "Whatever this is, do not try to handle it alone." I did not answer. Handling things alone had been one of my most practiced skills. I reached Killeen Police Department at 2:36, exactly 18 minutes after leaving the Fort Cavazos parking lot. Sergeant Raymond Pike met me in the lobby. He was a broad man in his late 50s, with silver at his temples and the exhausted eyes of someone near the end of a night shift. His gaze dropped briefly to my rank. I did not use it. I need to see my mother, and I need to know where my husband is. He is in a separate interview room. There has been no contact between them. Is he under arrest? Not at this time. Why not? We are still reviewing the scene and both statements. He has been photographed, his phone has been collected for examination, and he was told not to leave while we complete the initial review. Where is my mother? Interview room 3. Why is she not at the hospital? EMS examined her at the house. She refused transport. She said she wanted officers to hear her statement before Mr. Holloway controlled the entire account. Pike paused. Continuing the interview here was not ideal, but she was conscious and told us she had bruising. Take me to her. He led me through the secured hallway instead of allowing me to walk in alone. Mom looked smaller than she had on the day we buried my father. She sat curled forward in a plastic chair. Dried blood marked the collar of her blouse. Her glasses were bent and one lens was missing. Her left shoulder was swollen beneath the fabric. Every breath stopped halfway. When she saw me, she tried to smile. I knew you would come. I knelt in front of her. You need a hospital. Officer Ethan Cole stood near the door. He looked younger than the tension in his face. We were waiting to finish a few questions. I looked at him. What procedure allows you to continue questioning a 72-year-old woman who may have broken bones and a head injury? He opened his mouth, then closed it. I kept my voice level. I am not asking to interfere with your investigation. I am asking you to protect the person sitting in front of you. Cole nodded and reached for his radio. EMS was called back. While we waited, Sergeant Pike took me into his office. Your husband says your mother came at him with an iron object, something like a fireplace poker. He says he disarmed her, pushed her away, and called 911. Did you find the object? No. My mother lives in a ranch house with electric heat. There is no fireplace. There has never been a fireplace, and she does not own a poker. Pike wrote it down. That is a discrepancy we will verify. He did not pretend it solved the case. I respected that more than I expected. Grant had always been convincing. He remembered names, birthdays, favorite meals, and small details that made people feel chosen. He had repaired a widow's roof for free through our church. He sponsored a youth baseball team. He had stayed home with Piper when I was deployed and never once complained to anyone who could praise him for it. For years, I believed I had married a generous man. Then the joke started changing. By 2019, humor had become correction. Confidence had become a need to win every disagreement. Whenever I asked about an overdue bill, he said I was bringing command behavior into our marriage. I kept telling myself the business was under pressure. Sergeant Pike folded his hands. There is something else. He told me Grant had sounded unusually controlled during the 911 call. He repeatedly used the same words: confused, unstable, protecting myself. Not the scattered language of a frightened person. A clean explanation with every dangerous word already in place. At that point, the officers did not believe they had enough probable cause to arrest him. Grant had been released after giving a statement surrendering his phone and agreeing not to approach Marjorie while the case was reviewed. The ambulance arrived a few minutes later. As the paramedics lifted Mom onto the stretcher, she caught my hand. Do not do anything because you are angry. I do not know what I am going to do yet. That was the truth. But I am not going to let Grant decide what everyone is allowed to believe. After they took her away, Pike stopped me before I reached the lobby. He held out a small evidence bag. Inside was a piece of broken eyeglass lens. It had been found lodged deep inside the tread of Grant's shoe. Pike warned me that one fragment could not prove the entire sequence of events. I understood. But if Grant had merely pushed my mother away and stepped back to protect himself, there was one question his carefully prepared story did not answer. Why had he been standing on her broken glasses where she had fallen? Grant had called 911 first because he thought the first story would become the truth. The kitchen floor had already begun telling a different one. I walked into the parking lot and headed for my car. Nora called before I reached it. Piper is safe, she said, but Grant left the same message on her phone.
The house voicemail and my number.
What did he say? Nora hesitated.
Tell your mother she does not know the whole story.
I looked back at the police station. Grant was not only trying to defend himself, he was still trying to control us from outside the room. Chapter 2. The papers my mother wasn't supposed to see. By sunrise, my mother was settled into a room at Baylor Scott and White Medical Center in Temple. The scans confirmed a fractured left collarbone, 2 cracked ribs, a mild concussion, and deep bruising along her hip. The doctor said she would need to stay for 2 nights and begin physical therapy after discharge. 10 to 12 weeks was the best estimate for basic recovery. Mom listened without interrupting. When the doctor finished, she asked whether she would still be able to drive herself to the grocery store by September. That was Marjorie. She could be lying in a hospital bed with half her left side turning purple and still think 3 months ahead. Nora stood near the window with her arms folded. She was a nurse, but she made a point of staying on the family side of the room. No checking charts over anyone's shoulder. No second-guessing the staff. Just a daughter watching her mother breathe carefully. My phone buzzed. Piper had sent 2 messages. Is Grandma going to die? Did Dad really do it? I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Grandma is safe, I wrote. The doctors are taking care of her. None of this is your fault. I did not answer the second question yet. Not because I wanted to protect Grant. Because once I gave Piper the full truth, I could not take back what it would do to the father she remembered. A woman in plain clothes arrived shortly after 7. She introduced herself as Detective Celeste Moreno. She was 43, calm without being cold, and carried a legal pad under one arm. She did not apologize for the entire department. She did not make excuses either. The first officers reacted too quickly to the account given by the person who called 911, she said. I am reviewing the case from the beginning. Do you believe my mother? I asked. I believe she deserves to have her statement tested against the evidence, the same as anyone else. It was the right answer. The doctor cleared Mom to answer short questions as long as she could rest whenever she needed. Moreno turned on a recorder and sat beside the bed. Mom began with the pie. Grant arrived at 9:14 the night before, carrying a pecan pie from a bakery near downtown Temple. He said he wanted to apologize for the tension between them. For a few minutes, he acted like the man our neighbors knew. He asked about her tomatoes. He noticed the new curtains over the sink. He said he hated that things had become uncomfortable between them. Then he asked what she had told me about the company. Mom said she did not know what he meant. He asked for the envelope. 2 weeks earlier, a bank envelope addressed to Holloway Ridge Renovations had arrived at her house. Years ago, Grant had used her address while moving the company office, and apparently one record had never been updated. Inside was a notice concerning a secured loan for $148,000. The document listed our home as collateral. It also carried my electronic signature. Mom had known immediately that something was wrong. The paperwork used my middle name in a form I never used on official documents. It also placed my signature beneath language about business debt that I had never discussed with her or Grant. She did not know whether the signature had been copied, whether pages had been changed, or whether I had signed something without being shown the full agreement. She only knew I needed to see it. My father had always told her to copy anything important before handing it over. So she made a copy and stored it somewhere else. Grant knew the envelope had gone to her house because the bank had contacted him about the outdated address. He asked politely for it at first. Then he said Mom did not understand business. He told her the loan was the only reason Holloway Ridge Renovations still had employees. Mom asked why I did not know about it. Grant told her to stop interfering in our marriage. She told him my name and my house were not his to use in secret. That was when his voice changed. He called her forgetful. He said no one would believe an elderly woman whose memory was already slipping over a respected businessman who had lived in Bell County for years. Moreno stopped writing for a moment. Had he mentioned concerns about your memory before that night, she asked. Mom looked at me. Since last winter. The answer landed harder than I expected. Grant had told Piper that Grandma sometimes repeated questions. He had joked to a neighbor that Mom mixed up appointments. He had mentioned to me more than once that she was becoming suspicious and emotional. I remembered every example. Mom had once misplaced her keys in the garden shed. She had repeated a story about my father during Thanksgiving dinner. She had written the wrong time on a dental appointment. Small human mistakes. Grant had collected them and arranged them into a diagnosis none of us had questioned closely enough. He had not fooled me because I was weak. He had taken harmless truths and built a lie around them, one piece at a time. Mom continued. When she refused to give him the copy, Grant walked outside. He was gone for less than a minute. Then he returned holding something long. He told her that if she kept pushing, people would believe she was the one who had lost control. The first swing struck her shoulder. The second hit her ribs after she fell against the kitchen table. She remembered waking on the floor and seeing Grant with his phone. For one brief second, she thought he was calling for help. Instead, the first thing he told the dispatcher was that his mother-in-law had attacked him. By late morning, his version had begun spreading. Janice Whitlow, a 63-year-old member of our church council, posted that Grant was dealing with a painful family situation involving an older relative's mental health. Several former customers defended him. One wrote that Grant had repaired her porch for free after her husband died. Another said he was too patient and generous to hurt anyone. I opened the comment box. Then I closed it. My mother's injuries were not going to become evidence in a Facebook argument. A voicemail from Grant arrived 10 minutes later. His voice was controlled. He said Mom was destroying our family. He said I did not understand the whole story. He demanded that I bring Piper home and stop letting Nora poison her against him. Nora heard the message from across the room. She turned on me. How many times did Mom and I tell you something was wrong with the way he talked to her? Not now, I said. When Tamsin, after he breaks something else. You have no idea what it took to keep my career raised Piper and hold that family together. Nora's face hardened. That is exactly the problem. You got so good at carrying everything that you started treating endurance like an obligation. I had no answer that would not make things worse. We did not apologize. Not then. That afternoon, Detective Moreno called me back to the station. Officer Ethan Cole had reviewed the scene again. Most of the blood was close to the floor. The broken chair leaned in the direction Mom said she had fallen. Two neighbors heard one person shouting, and both described a man's voice. A traffic camera showed Grant's truck arriving at 9:14 and remaining until police came. A utility vehicle camera caught him opening the toolbox mounted behind his cab and removing an object about 32 inches long. The image was not clear enough to identify it, but it proved the object had not been waiting inside Mom's kitchen. During the vehicle examination, Grant had agreed to, police found an aluminum baseball bat in the toolbox. His fingerprints were on the grip. A fiber on the barrel appeared similar in color and weave to Mom's blouse. The lab still had to confirm it, but the story Grant told was losing room to breathe. By evening, I was standing inside my own house with Rebecca Sloan, a family law attorney Nora had recommended. Rebecca was 45, direct and careful with every word. She helped me prepare a protective order request for Mom temporary orders concerning Grant's contact with Piper and immediate steps to secure my military pay and retirement records. She refused to call my signature forged. "We do not know that yet," she said. "What we know is that you were not given the full information." In Grant's home office, I found the insurance renewal packet I had signed in February 2024. The signature page matched the one attached to the loan. The surrounding pages did not. Rebecca placed both documents side by side on the desk. Then she pointed to the collateral section. Our house was listed there. The place where I had raised Piper. The place where I had planned to retire after 26 years in uniform. Grant had put it behind a $148,000 loan without ever giving me a real choice. My phone lit up while I stood in the kitchen. Grant had contacted Piper through a second social media account, even after Rebecca demanded that all communication go through counsel. The message contained one sentence. "You know your mother turns everything into a crisis." I read it twice. Grant was no longer only trying to defend himself from the police. He was trying to pull our daughter into the fight over whose version of reality would survive. Chapter 3. The Daughter. He tried to turn against me. 2 days later, the evidence moved faster than Grant's explanations. The preliminary lab report confirmed that the fiber caught on the aluminum bat was consistent with the fabric from Mom's blouse. Grant's fingerprints were on the grip. The scratches across his hands were shallow and in the wrong places for someone who had been defending himself from a long metal object. The forensic nurse would not say he had definitely injured himself. She did not need to. Her conclusion was careful. His injuries did not strongly support the account he had given police. When that report was added to the traffic footage, the utility truck video, the broken lens under his shoe, and Mom's medical records, the Bell County prosecutor approved an arrest warrant. Grant Holloway was arrested on Sunday, July 20th for aggravated assault involving an elderly victim and filing a false police report. His attorney, Graham Beckett, spoke to reporters before Grant had spent a full afternoon in custody. He called it a tragic family misunderstanding. He said the evidence would eventually show that Grant had reacted to a frightening and unpredictable situation. I watched the clip once, then I turned it off. Rebecca Sloan filed for a protective order covering Mom and asked the family court for temporary orders limiting Grant's direct contact with Piper and me. She warned me not to describe those limits as automatic. Grant is still Piper's legal father, she said. The judge has to balance his parental rights against the violence, the calls, the messages, and Piper's safety. I do not want him near her, I understand, but we are going to ask for restrictions because they are necessary, not because we want to punish him. That distinction mattered, even when I hated it. The judge temporarily prohibited Grant from contacting Mom. Communication with Piper had to go through the attorneys until the court reviewed the criminal case and the messages he had sent after the attack. While Rebecca handled the family orders, we kept going through the papers from Grant's office. The deeper we looked, the less the house felt like mine. Holloway Ridge renovations owed roughly $63,500 in payroll taxes. There were overdue notices from material suppliers, missed loan payments, and invoices that had been sitting unpaid for months. I remembered asking Grant about a certified letter from the bank earlier that spring. He had laughed and kissed my forehead. Every business has difficult months, Tam. You manage military logistics. Let me manage my own company. At the time, I had accepted that as reasonable. Now I understood what he had really taken from me. Not only money, the chance to reduce our spending, the chance to delay retirement, the chance to speak with an attorney before our home became collateral, the chance to protect Piper from a financial collapse, the chance to decide whether I wanted to remain married to a man who was gambling with our future. The first person from Grant's company to contact me was Miles Keaton, his 47-year-old senior project manager. He asked to meet in a coffee shop near Temple. Miles looked as though he had not slept in days. He kept turning his paper cup between both hands. There are 3 projects, he said. All 3 customers paid deposits. How much? Close to $75,000 altogether. And the materials never ordered. I stared at him. Grant told us the customers had not paid. You knew that was not true. Miles looked down. I saw the payment confirmations. I told myself it was temporary, that he was moving money around until another job closed. How long did you tell yourself that? His jaw tightened. Too long. He had a mortgage and 2 children in college. Speaking out could have cost him his job. I understood his fear. Understanding it did not erase the consequences. You were scared, I said, but your silence still gave him time. I know. The next call came from Shelby Crane, the 38-year-old bookkeeper Grant had begun blaming for the company's records. Shelby had saved emails. Grant had instructed her to delay payroll tax payments, move money between accounts, and record customer deposits as completed revenue, even when the projects had not begun. I did what he told me at first, she said over the phone. Then the numbers stopped making sense. When I questioned him, he said I was becoming a liability. Do you still have the messages? All of them. I did not ask her to send them to me. Rebecca arranged for the files to go directly to Detective Celeste Moreno. Moreno used Mom's copy of the loan documents, Grant's messages demanding the envelope, and the records from Miles and Shelby to seek a limited financial warrant. The money investigation was then assigned to Special Agent Aaron Bell with the Texas Department of Public Safety. Bell was 46 and spoke with the caution of a man who knew every careless sentence could damage a case. I cannot discuss everything we are reviewing, he told me. What I can tell you is that there are indications money may have been moved out of company accounts. Can you stop it? We are working with the financial institutions. Rebecca Sloan can advise you about protecting your personal assets. He would not give me more. For once, I appreciated someone refusing to tell me what I wanted to hear until he could prove it. Piper began seeing Dr. Erin Caldwell that same week. She resisted at first. "I am not crazy," she told me in the car. "I know. Then why do I need a therapist?" "Because someone you love did something frightening, and you should not have to sort through that alone." During the first sessions, Piper talked about the good Grant had done. He had built her desk. He had stayed awake until 2 in the morning helping with a science project. He had attended basketball games even when work ran late. He had taught her to drive in an empty church parking lot. She did not want those memories taken from her. Dr. Caldwell helped her understand that they did not have to be. A person could have done loving things and still be responsible for something dangerous. I never told Piper she had to hate Grant. I told her only what I knew. He had lied about parts of that night. He had tried to make Grandma look unreliable, and Piper was not responsible for saving him. Grant's attorney soon requested a visit. Every part of me wanted to refuse. Rebecca reminded me that the court, not my anger, had to make the decision. After reviewing the criminal charges, Grant's messages, and Dr. Caldwell's recommendation, the judge approved one supervised visit at the Central Texas Family Advocacy Center in Belton. The room would be recorded under the center's rules. Grant and his attorney were informed in advance. Piper could stop the visit whenever she chose. Beforehand, I explained that a camera near Grandma's house had shown Grant taking something from his truck. I did not tell her every detail about the bank records. Grant entered the visitation room looking tired and unshaven. The moment he saw Piper, he smiled. "Hey, Pip." She remained beside the chair closest to the door. "You do not have to be afraid of me," he said. "I am not afraid." "Then why will you not sit closer?" Piper looked at him. "Because I do not know what is true." Grant asked about school and basketball. For several minutes, he sounded like the father she remembered. Then he began talking about Mom. "Your grandmother has been forgetting things for a long time." "I have not noticed that. You are young. You would not always see it." He said I was reacting like a military officer instead of a wife. He said Nora had always hated him. He said outsiders were tearing apart our family. Piper folded her hands in her lap. "If Grandma imagined what happened, why does she have broken ribs?"
Grant's expression changed for less than a second.
"The doctors know she was injured. They do not know exactly how it happened." "Why does the camera show you taking something from your truck?"
He paused.
"You should not be hearing details from an investigation."
That is not an answer. Grant leaned forward.
"Families protect each other. You cannot let people who do not understand us destroy everything we have." "What papers did Grandma have?" His hands stopped moving. Things she did not understand. What things? Documents that could destroy everything I built. Piper stared at him. If the papers were legal, why would they destroy our family? Grant looked toward the observation window. "You will understand when you are older." Piper stood. "I am old enough to understand that you care more about people believing you than whether Grandma survived." She asked the supervisor to end the visit. When she came through the door, she wrapped both arms around me and began to cry. I did not feel victorious. My daughter had not defeated Grant. She had just lost the version of her father she had trusted. Dr. Caldwell stayed with her until her breathing slowed. Later that afternoon, Aaron Bell called. He said the search of Grant's devices had revealed queries involving memory loss and the reliability of elderly witnesses. He would not disclose the exact searches yet, but the timing suggested the story about Mom being confused might have been prepared before the attack. Then he told me what they had found in the accounts. On July 19th, less than 12 hours after Mom was taken from the police station, Grant transferred $74,800 from an account holding customer deposits into a brokerage account controlled by a hidden LLC at an out-of-state bank. The amount nearly matched the 3 deposits Miles had described. Grant had not only needed Mom to look unreliable so he could avoid responsibility for hitting her, he needed enough time to move the money before I froze the accounts, before the suppliers discovered the truth, and before the customers realized their deposits were gone. The attack had not begun with a sudden burst of anger. It had begun when Grant decided that the truth of a 72-year-old woman was the last obstacle standing between him and the money he intended to take. Chapter 4. The story he could no longer control. By the end of 2025, the case had stopped feeling like a single night and started feeling like the structure of our lives. Mom spent months in physical therapy. Her shoulder slowly regained movement, but she still froze when someone knocked too hard or when a metal pan hit the kitchen floor. Piper kept seeing Dr. Aaron Caldwell and refused direct contact with Grant unless a letter passed through the attorneys first. Nora and I began repairing our relationship in small pieces. One afternoon while we waited outside Mom's therapy appointment, Nora stared through the windshield and spoke without looking at me. "I was angry because I thought you chose him over us. I thought I was keeping the family together. You were keeping everything moving. That is not always the same thing." I let that sit between us. For years, I had treated endurance like proof of strength. I knew how to keep functioning under pressure, how to complete the mission, how to carry more than anyone expected. I had never asked whether some things should have been carried at all. I retired in May 2026 after 26 years in uniform. There was no large banquet, no room full of speeches. I folded my final uniform, placed it in the closet, and drove Mom to a medical appointment the next morning. Retirement did not feel like a reward. It felt like finally having enough time to face what Grant had left behind. Holloway Ridge renovations collapsed without any help from me. Kayla Brains and 2 other suppliers filed suit over unpaid invoices. Customers canceled projects after learning their deposits had not been used to purchase materials. Miles Keaton and Shelby Crane cooperated with investigators. 7 months after Grant's arrest, the company closed. Some employees found new work. Others went weeks without income. I never celebrated. Grant had caused the damage, but innocent people still lost paychecks, health insurance, and trust in a business they had helped build. That was the kind of karma no one put in dramatic stories. It did not fall neatly on the guilty person alone. It spread through every life he had used to hold up his lies. The community did not change all at once either. Janice Whitlow deleted her post defending Grant. A few church members sent private apologies. Others continued saying he had been a good man pushed past his limit by debt and family conflict. I stopped trying to convince them. The truth did not automatically make people brave. It only made the old story harder to repeat without choosing ignorance. The criminal trial began in August 2026 at the Bell County Justice Center. Grant faced aggravated assault involving an elderly victim and filing a false police report. The financial charges were being handled separately, but Judge Evelyn Mercer allowed limited financial evidence because it helped explain motive. Grant arrived in a dark suit and pale blue tie. He looked older than he had a year earlier, but he still carried himself like a man entering a room he expected to control. He glanced at me once. I did not look away. Mom testified first. She walked carefully to the witness stand, her left shoulder still slightly stiff. Assistant District Attorney Alicia Monroe asked simple questions and gave her time to answer. Mom described the pie, the envelope, the demand for the papers, and the moment Grant returned from his truck. She did not cry. She did not exaggerate. She told the truth in the same plain voice she had used all my life. Graham Beckett stood for cross-examination. "You have forgotten appointments before, correct?" "Yes, you suffered a concussion that evening." "Yes, and at 72, your memory is not perfect." Mom looked directly at him. "I forgot a dental appointment. I did not forget who hit me." A few jurors shifted in their seats. Beckett moved on. Sergeant Raymond Pike testified next. He admitted the first officers had given too much weight to the person who called 911 before collecting the full evidence. Officer Ethan Cole explained why the recording later bothered him. Grant had used the same phrases repeatedly: confused, unstable, protecting myself. Beckett suggested Grant sounded calm because he was used to managing emergencies at construction sites. Alicia asked Cole whether calmness alone had changed his opinion. "No," he said. "It was how prepared the language sounded and how often the same language appeared afterward." The physical evidence came next, but the prosecution did not retell the entire investigation. The broken lens placed Grant where Mom had fallen. The camera footage contradicted his claim that the weapon had been inside the house. The bat from his truck carried his fingerprints and fibers consistent with Mom's blouse. The scratches on his hands did not strongly support a defensive struggle. Each fact took only minutes to explain. Together, they removed almost every place Grant's story could hide. Miles testified about the customer deposits. Shelby presented the emails Grant had sent, directing her to delay payroll taxes and move money between accounts. Caleb Rains confirmed his company had never received payment for materials on projects that customers had already funded. Then Aaron Bell took the stand. He explained the secured loan for $148,000, the $63,500 in unpaid payroll taxes, and the $74,800 transferred to a brokerage account controlled by Grant's hidden LLC. He also explained why Mom's copy of the loan documents mattered. If I had seen them, I could have contacted the bank frozen new transfers and challenged the use of our home. The papers did not merely threaten Grant's reputation. They threatened the time he needed to move the money. The supervised visit video was admitted after the Advocacy Center confirmed how it had been recorded and stored. Piper did not have to sit on the witness stand and repeat the conversation. Grant's own voice filled the courtroom.
Documents that could destroy everything I built.
Beckett argued that Grant had been describing financial pressure, not admitting an assault. Alicia placed the statement beside the messages demanding the envelope. The transfer made hours after Mom was hospitalized, and the months Grant had spent calling her confused. The pattern was stronger than any one sentence. Graham Beckett advised Grant not to testify. Grant did it anyway. He had always believed explanation was the same as innocence. On the stand, he said Mom attacked first. He said the object from the truck was not the bat. He said the $74,800 was a legitimate attempt to protect the company. He said his concern about Mom's memory had been sincere. Alicia approached slowly. If the object you removed from the truck was not the bat, why was the bat found in the same toolbox with your fingerprints on the grip? I use that truck every day. If Mrs. Vale attacked you while standing, why was most of the blood found near the floor beside her broken glasses? The kitchen was chaotic. If the transfer was legitimate, why move the money into an LLC your wife did not know existed? To protect it from creditors until I could stabilize the company. Protect it from creditors or keep your wife from stopping you. Grant looked toward Beckett. Alicia continued. 3 days before the assault, Grant had searched for information about the reliability of witnesses with dementia. 2 days before, he searched whether head injuries could cause memory loss. The day before, he searched how to challenge an elderly person's mental capacity. Grant said the searches were for a client with an aging mother. No email appointment contract or project record supported that explanation. Alicia returned to the transfer. If you were only trying to save your company, why did you need Marjorie Vale to look mentally unreliable before you moved the money? Grant's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Then he looked at me. I knew that look. I had seen it after unpaid bills, angry customers, and family arguments. It was the look he gave when he wanted me to soften his words, explain his behavior, or become the reasonable one so he did not have to face what he had done. For almost 13 years, I had answered that look. This time, I stayed still. I did not nod. I did not look down. I did not rescue him. That was the moment Grant finally lost control of the story. The jury left to deliberate shortly after closing arguments. In the hallway, Sergeant Pike approached Mom. I believed the easier version before I listened closely to the injured person, he said. I am sorry. Mom studied him. I will decide what that apology means when I see what your department changes. Pike nodded. That is fair. Hours later, the bailiff opened the courtroom doors. The jury has reached a verdict. I took Mom's hand. Piper took mine. The three of us stood together as the jury foreperson entered, carrying the decision that would end the story Grant had been trying to write for us. Chapter 5. What We Kept After He Lost Control. The jury foreperson unfolded the paper and looked toward the judge. On the charge of aggravated assault involving an elderly victim, guilty. Grant closed his eyes. On the charge of filing a false police report, guilty. For several seconds, no one in the courtroom moved. Then the judge thanked the jurors and dismissed them. 2 deputies approached the defense table. Grant turned toward me as they secured his wrists. "Tamsin," he said, "I never wanted it to end like this. I thought about Mom lying on her kitchen floor. I thought about Piper asking whether the good memories with her father had been real. I thought about every bill Grant had hidden and every time he had made me feel unreasonable for asking a simple question. This did not begin in this courtroom," I said. "It began every time you chose to hide something, blame someone else, and trust that the people who loved you would clean up the damage." Grant stared at me as if he expected another sentence. There was nothing else to say. The deputies led him through the side door. 6 weeks later, Judge Evelyn Mercer sentenced him to 11 years in state prison. She spoke briefly about Mom's age, the seriousness of her injuries, the fact that Grant had brought the weapon to her home, and the effort he had made to portray her as mentally unreliable. She also noted that he had continued denying responsibility after the evidence became overwhelming. The financial case was resolved separately. Once the bank records customer deposits and hidden LLC were placed together, Grant accepted a plea agreement involving fraud and misuse of customer funds. Much of that sentence ran at the same time as the assault sentence under the terms of the agreement. He was ordered to pay restitution and prohibited from managing another contracting business after his release. Holloway Ridge renovations closed permanently. The company trucks were repossessed. The remaining equipment was sold and the money was divided among customers, suppliers, and other creditors. Miles Keaton and Shelby Crane provided enough records to show that they had not directed the transfers. Some of the employees found new positions. Others lost months of income they would never recover. Caleb Raines received only part of what his company was owed. I did not celebrate any of it. Grant had created the collapse, but the consequences did not land only on him. People who had trusted him lost money, jobs, and years of work. That was the part of karma people rarely talked about. The guilty person could start the fire, but innocent people still breathed the smoke. A few months after the trial, Mom received a letter from Janice Whitlow. Janice admitted she had defended Grant because she remembered the good things he had done for her and the church. She wrote that she had not stopped to consider what her support would feel like to the woman lying injured in a hospital. Mom read the letter once and placed it in a kitchen drawer. "Are you going to answer her?" I asked. "Maybe, someday." She closed the drawer. An apology does not create an obligation for me to make her feel forgiven. I understood. Killeen Police Department also contacted us. Captain Denise Harper invited Mom and me to a private meeting. Sergeant Raymond Pike and Officer Ethan Cole were already waiting when we arrived. Pike stood when Mom entered. Mrs. Vale. I believed the person who called first. I mistook calmness for credibility, and I did not make sure you received proper medical attention before the questioning continued. Those were my failures. Ethan spoke next. I completed additional training on elder abuse and trauma-informed interviewing. I asked for it because I do not want to make the same mistake with someone else. Captain Harper explained that the department had added a checklist for cases involving older adults. Medical assessment would now come before any extended interview when there were visible injuries or possible head trauma. Officers were also being trained not to treat fear, confusion, or inconsistent speech after violence as automatic signs that someone was lying. Mom listened quietly. "Your apology does not change what happened that night," she said. "But if those changes help the next person get heard sooner, then at least your mistake did not end with me." Pike lowered his head. "No, ma'am, it did not." Rebecca Sloan helped me complete the divorce. My military retirement account remained protected because the records showed I had not been given full information about Grant's business transactions. The house was more complicated. It was still tied to the secured loan and other legitimate obligations. By early 2027, selling it was the only realistic way to resolve the debt and divide what remained. I stood across the street on the day the sold sign appeared. That house had held Piper's birthdays, early mornings before deployment, family dinners, and years when I believed I was building a safe future. I did not feel victorious watching another family carry boxes through the front door. Losing the house was still a loss. Justice did not return everything Grant had taken. Piper and I moved into a small townhouse closer to Mom. Piper continued attending Colleen Ridge High School and seeing Dr. Caldwell. During Grant's first year in prison, she chose not to visit him. I did not push her toward forgiveness, and I did not ask her to cut him out of her life forever. You get to decide what relationship you want when you feel safe enough to make that decision, I told her. But no one gets to ask you to deny what happened. Nora helped us move. She arrived with boxes, packing tape, and enough food for 12 people. For the first time in years, I asked her for help before I had already exhausted myself. Our relationship did not heal through one perfect conversation. It healed through ordinary acts. She drove Mom to therapy when I had legal appointments. I watched her dog when she worked double shifts. We learned to call each other before frustration became resentment. Mom remained in her own house. Her shoulder improved, but loud knocking still made her flinch. Healing did not erase the body's memory. We replaced the broken kitchen table together. Piper selected bright blue curtains for the window above the sink. Mom held up a beige sample. I was considering something quieter, she said. Piper shook her head. Beige makes the room look like no one has ever lived there. Mom laughed. It was the first time I heard her laugh in that kitchen without checking the door afterward. The laughter did not erase what Grant had done. It proved he had not taken everything. One warm afternoon, the three of us planted tomatoes behind my townhouse. Piper pressed soil around a young plant, while Mom supervised from a folding chair. After a while, Piper looked at me. Do you hate Dad? I set down the garden trowel. I hate what he chose to do, but I do not want to spend the rest of my life keeping him inside my head through anger. She looked down at the plant. Were the good memories fake? No. She looked surprised. Your memories belong to you. A good thing he did does not erase the harm. The harm does not force you to pretend every happy moment was a lie. Then what am I supposed to do with all of it? You do not have to erase him from your past. You only have to make sure the past does not force you to keep giving him power. Piper nodded slowly. I looked at Mom, the woman Grant had called confused, who had been clear-minded enough to preserve the papers that exposed him. Then I looked at my daughter, who had refused to let love become a test of obedience. Every tool Grant had used to control the story, the 911 call, the rumors, the documents, the money, and finally his own testimony, had left a trail he could not erase. I had not destroyed him. His own choices had carried him to the outcome he kept blaming on everyone else. I did not get back the old house, the old marriage, or the version of Piper's father we once believed in. What I recovered was the right to decide what happened next. For the first time in years, the future of 3 generations of Vale women no longer depended on the story Grant wanted the world to believe. Have you ever watched someone use a good reputation to hide what they were doing behind closed doors? Tell me where you would have drawn the line, and subscribe for more stories about women who stopped protecting the people who betrayed them and finally chose the truth.